You're listening to The Business Focused Photographer. If you're ready to transform your photography business into a thriving career, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll discuss fun and innovative ways to boost your creativity and income. Sound good? Let's go. Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. As always, excited to speak to a new friend because today I'm here with Alan Shapiro, and this is our second episode for the series on how I built this. And Alan is a New York based, which is exciting because I don't think I've spoken to other New York photographers yet. New York based food portrait and macro photographer, and Alan's work's great, of course. That's why I invited him on. But I think he's going to have a lot to share with in terms of how he built this. So welcome, Alan, the star of the show. So excited to have you. Do you want to take a moment to further introduce yourself, a little origin story or anything?
Sure. Definite origin story. I am a lifelong storyteller. Going back to when I was 2 and 3, my parents would tell you I was always making up fabulous stories. So even though I wanted to become a plastic surgeon, I ended up going to art school, and I cross-matriculated at RISD and Brown and went into advertising. So perfect opportunity to tell stories for giant clients. I ended up at what is now the largest agency network in the world, Omnicom, who recently bought IPG, so they got even bigger. I was the fourth agency they bought at when they founded themselves. And most agency owners will take the money and retire or go do something else. And I stuck with it because I found a group of people that I just loved. And so because I was in early, and then because I grew and grew and grew, you go from being a creative person, which is what I am, to a problem solver, to a stress heavy problem solver. Because the higher you go in an organization, particularly when you're working with multinational advertisers with hundreds of millions of dollars to spend, the pressure gets real, the problems get bigger. And so it stopped being fun. It was nonstop stress. And a good friend of mine walked in one day, someone who I'd given lots and lots of assignments to, because that's the joy, right? As a creative guy, you have a story and then you find the best people around the world to tell your stories. Photographers, cinematographers, illustrators, wonderful. A photographer friend walked in and said, "Kid, this job's going to kill you. I brought you a present because it's brought me a lot of joy." And he handed me a camera. And he said, "I think if you spend a few minutes each day with it, you will find a happy place." And he was right. And I found the most incredible happy place because I went from leading teams around the world. Like some teams are small, some teams were huge at multiple locations. But it was very much a team sport, to finding this solitary place that allowed my brain to percolate and to find solutions and to just relax. So therapy and a creative exercise regimen, and that turned into an opportunity for me to document my story to a whole bunch of people. And at that time, there was this small little company called Google who had set up their own social network called Google Plus. Remember that? and and so I would just tell the daily stories, and that I I definitely attribute to some of the ongoing success, because they, different from Facebook, and Instagram wasn't what it was at the time. Uh, they really focused on creative people, and a community emerged. And I found a lot of future clients were there as well because they were interested in what Google would do differently than Facebook, now Meta, and who was there and who could they find. So I would tell a daily story, and sometimes it was about the challenge as a new photographer. And other times it was about a soapbox opportunity. I love veterans. I love that, whatever my cause du jour is. This goes back about 15 years. So we didn't have the current challenges. Now it's like, do I still want to get up on a soapbox, or do I want to keep quiet? Because no matter which side you choose, it's rife with potential risk.
Right.
Hold that thought. We'll come back and talk
Yeah.
about it. But in telling those stories and being very transparent, a lot of people were attracted and could relate. And again, so for me as a lifelong storyteller and talker to people, um, it became an opportunity to teach and share. And that again is another area we'll talk about later. So the daily creative exercise regimen, and I maintain it to this day. Some people are joggers and they go out for a jog every single day, no matter how much it's raining or snowing or whatever. I take pictures every single day, whether for myself or for clients. Um, and the advertising job continued, but now I had a second career. So balancing those two things became its own ordeal, and we'll talk about that later. So now clients started calling. I was I was totally hesitant to go to my advertising clients because that for me felt like a conflict of interest, and I have imposter syndrome. I was never going to be good enough for them. But other people started calling. I do a lot of work. I love veterans. My dad's a vet. I would go down to the Veterans Day celebration here in New York, and I would document them and I would make friends and I would share the stories. And then Lockheed Martin, of all people, major defense contractor, called and said they found me online through my stories. Take note of that, peoples. Um, and gave me an assignment to document veterans of all the wars around the country as a means of them saying thank you for your service. So what a great assignment, right?
Wow.
That
Yeah.
came out of nowhere. And so that came from capturing. I can't say shooting these days. None of
Yeah.
us should say shooting.
I know. I know
It,
it's a practice to
right,
to break, right?
right. So from capturing people, which was easy because I would see someone and I would say, "Oh my God, what a great outfit. What great hair. Your eyes are incredible." And I would just stop and talk to people, couples I love, um, veterans, the underserved, the now unhoused community. We used to call them homeless. We have to evolve that. So from shooting people and hearing the stories, in many cases of despair, it led me to find other things. Let's not just shoot people. And so I roamed into a garden and found something beautiful looking up when things were looking down. And so I discovered a love for that. And that became part of the daily exercise regimen. Like we do upper body workouts and lower body. Now
Yeah.
we can capture people and flowers or wildlife. And then in the winter months, even though I was out for shorter periods of time. I love to eat. And being in New York, I am
You're in the right
absolutely,
place.
I am in the right place. And I had a lot of friends. I grew up in a family where we ate out every night because my parents were both working and my mother wanted to come home and not cook. And so that became our not luxury, but essential to keep the family talking and in a relaxed environment. So I grew up eating out. And so it's continued into my adult life. So I have a lot of friends who are chefs. I collect them. They make for great dinner party companions. And at one point I said, God, I love to eat. Maybe I could start capturing the food. And so I asked my best friend. So now this gets into like tips for how do you get into a certain area. I asked one of my better friends, can I spend time in your kitchen? And he said, sure, just be careful. There are sharp knives. It's like, it's okay. I have really good insurance. Just don't throw them because, uh, and and that turned into something that from an opportunity to practice. Again, I'd never been in a working kitchen other than as a spectator, but the choreography and the being careful not to get in people's ways while you're documenting the food that is being prepared or the food that is then put up on the line to then, hey, make something extra for me and let me go and capture it for your menu, for your website, for whatever. That became something that I found I was okay enough at. And I'm gonna that imposter syndrome still
Sure.
maintains. I now shoot for lots of magazines and I have cookbooks and things, so I guess enough people think it's okay. uh, but it brings me such joy to have a variety of things that I love to capture. And so depending on my mood, I have a different opportunity, or I can do multiple things in a given day. Because again, I do it every day. I'm going to keep coming back to that. It's a discipline. And so there's the origin story. And now here we are.
That's wonderful. I want to I made a mental note to push back on this opportunity that fell out of the sky from Lockheed Martin, and I can't let you say that fell out of the sky because you were out there actively boots on the ground, immersing yourself in the community in front of the people, with the people you wanted to work with, photographing the things that you wanted to photograph, and it wasn't it wasn't because you had an email list and they heard from you, and it wasn't because your SEO is great, it was because of in-person
Passion
actual networking
and passion.
and
Mm.
passion.
Like, they saw in the work, in an area that we all spend arguably too much time on, social media,
Right,
right? It
right,
it it is here, and no different than AI, we must embrace it and figure it out,
right.
and not say it is bad for us. Sure, it may be, but so
Mhm.
were automobiles when they first came on, and so was electricity with those unsightly telephone poles. We must embrace things that are kind of here and
Yeah,
figure them out.
right.
So the storytelling they responded to because they saw someone who really could connect to veterans. And it's funny, I would ask, how did you guys find me? Because it came from contacts at Lockheed Martin who then told their agency to look at me, which is the process. The
Right.
agency decides who they're going to work with. And so they reached out to me. And now it's a little bit of a sales pitch, although lessened because the client already wanted me.
Mhm.
The agency needed to make sure that I wasn't going to flake out on them and that I knew what I was doing, and that, if we needed lighting, which we did, that that would be taken care of, and all of the steps that go into a commercial shoot need to be handled and need to be handled with a level of confidence that doesn't have them worrying.
Right. So how did they find you? It wa whose eye did you catch and where?
It was actually, I don't know, I think he is now the president of Lockheed Martin, that Bob. Um, I think. I'm not sure. I haven't kept up with him.
Yeah.
Uh, and at that point, he was like leading the marketing efforts, and said to his agency partner, probably the creative director at the agency, "I found this guy Alan who does a lot of veteran work. Do you want to talk to him for our campaign?" And they did, and they hired me.
Yeah, you made it easy for them to find this person that they needed and check this thing off of their list, because you were out there doing that. And by the way, what war was your father in?
Yeah.
Which war was your
He
father in?
he was in Korea after the Vietnam War, so he went in
Yeah.
just as I was born, which if you
Wow.
got my mother talking, she would say, "Oh my god, what are you thinking?" I was 2 months old when he deployed to Korea for 2 years, and
Jeez.
here we were living on an army base, and he was in Korea with a houseboy because he was in charge of a MASH during the peacekeeping efforts after the war. It was, the mid-60s
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
when I came into being. So he was just there and he avoided Vietnam, which would have been horrible because that would
Yeah,
have been very active duty.
yeah.
So he didn't have it easy. Dad, if you
No.
ever watch this, I adore you and am so proud of you for doing the service you did. Um, but you left mom and I. What were you thinking?
Right. My grandfather was in the Korean War, but before the Vietnam War. And
Okay.
it's the forgotten war. Everybody kind of forgets about it
Yeah.
because of it was kind of sandwiched by these 2 monumental
Mm.
wars, notorious in some ways, and, yeah, so I was curious about and did you sorry, go ahead. Did you grow up in New York? Or it sounds like you
I
could have
did.
been all over.
I grew up in here and didn't when I went away to school, RISD Brown, Providence. Oh God,
Yeah,
talk about I lived 4 blocks away from the shooting. Uh,
just awful.
uh,
I'm so sick of
yeah,
that news just and being numb to it. I'm sick of that too. I'm sick of it not being shocking and that shoot and not to derail too much, but we're talking about why shoot. We don't like to say shooting anymore, but this is why. And at the same time, in at Bondi Beach, and then on the anniversary of the Sandy Hook, it's just like, good God, man,
right,
something's got to give.
right. So here's an opportunity for the creators who are listening to maybe there isn't a better time than right now to use your passion and your talents to cast the light literally on what's going on and what's bothering you with what's going on. No matter
Right.
what side you're on, find something that you can, in with a level of passion and respectfulness, dial up and get people thinking and talking. I think that's an obligation we all should take on.
Yeah. You were born during an absolutely revolutionary time. What an incredible time to be
But
to
I was too young to
enter
appreciate it. I just,
and too young to probably have, like, any lasting trauma from it too. So, but but the best art is always created in these times, and the mid-60s to the mid-70s are a testament to that, and I am, like, heartened by, like, some of the good music that's coming out because of the certain times and art and, visual art and everything like that, but yeah, so you went to Brown. Wow. Okay,
so RISD, which had a cross matriculation program,
okay,
Brown. So I got to do liberal arts there and creative stuff at RISD. So it was the perfect environment.
it's perfect. And
Yeah.
you have these credentials, and we're obviously doing really well in marketing
No, no.
and advertising.
So here's the thing. RISD had no advertising program. They were elitist. It was about design. It was, corporate
Art first,
branding. Um, say
art art first,
art
business
first.
second.
And so and yet I was ambitious. And so rather than go to a design studio, which felt sleepy to me, I went to the local ad agency for an internship. And when I told my teachers I was going into I got this great internship at an agency, um, it was almost like they were offended. I was selling out, but I love to tell stories. I know, but you need to learn to design before you can that's a different discipline. And it was like, "No, no, no." So I finished as quickly, and went to Boston and started my advertising career with a little bit of maybe different training, um, but still, I was gonna tell stories, and I was just gonna do it however they needed to be told. So it was a wonderful time to be working because illustration was coming on and filmmaking was in a different kind of place than it is. And there was no internet back in 1982 and 83. And so everything was very focused. And as we added a channel and another channel, and by channel, I mean like there was print advertising. People once read magazines. Can you believe it? And would watch TV, but there were only, four networks. And
Mhm.
so you're
Right.
And so the
Commercials worked.
commercials worked and commercials weren't fragmented. You needed to be able to speak to the masses. And so now as a new channel emerges, you need to figure out who's there and what they want to hear and how they want to hear it, which is very important for a creator to be thinking about who their audience is. What sort of work are you doing and who do you want to do it for? And because now we have more choices than ever. And so with that fragmentation, let's make it positive. It's segmentation. We all need to be very clear who
Yeah.
who we want to be talking to, who we
Yeah.
want to be working with.
That is so at this point in your career as a photographer, you're a freelancer?
As a
You're
photographer,
yes.
as opposed, I don't know what else there would be, as opposed to I don't work for one organization only.
Right.
That would
Right.
be boring. So yes,
Right.
I am an independent photographer.
You are an independent contractor. So, some of your job, or maybe a lot of your job, I don't know, uh, this segment of the industry well, because you're doing B2B work, right? You're working,
So I work with agencies,
right,
and that's a different thing than working with clients
right,
direct to the end user because many clients these days don't need either have an in-house creative group that does their work. But when you work with an agency, it's very structured. I know I grew up in them and we used to have art buyers. So the art director didn't talk to the person who would ultimately they would ultimately be partnered with. An art buyer would first present you with a bunch of different people. Now that's changed. Now, as a photographer or any sort of creator, you need to be in the right places so that people can discover you, or you just need to be doing the right things so that you're discovered.
So do you feel like you're still marketing yourself as a photographer, or do you feel like quite you have a well-worn path in the networks that need to know about you?
I no, I don't think that exists anymore. I don't think any of the well-worn networks are valid anymore. Uh, there were
Go
on-
on, this is interesting.
there were once people whose job was to represent photographers, and there's a few of them that still exist, but there used to be far more. And photographer or talent reps, it's a dying breed, unfortunately, either because they weren't able to make enough, because as there was a time, I'm told, where there were far fewer photographers than there are now. Now everyone is a photographer and everyone is a filmmaker. And so, spinning it positively, we're in the renaissance of creation.
Thank
How
you.
how
Exactly.
wonderful, how
Right.
beautifully wonderful that all of us can find joy in creating or finding or making. Those are the two
Mhm.
big paths of creation. We can find beauty or drama or the story we feel needs to be told, or we can make it. As a studio photographer, when I'm working here, I'm in my home studio, by the way. There are cameras and
Nice.
whether we find or make things, I've lost my train of thought a little bit. Um, the people who would help represent us have gone away. So now you need to do it yourself. So I don't have, as much as I have regular clients who call me, can you shoot this for me? Can you capture that for me? Can you capture the next thing? Um, that's a lot of the editorial work I do. So for magazines, and by magazines, it could be an online publication or a paper publication. Um, the majority of my clients find me because they saw my work somewhere and liked it, and then dove deeper and saw more work. So it is so unpredictable as to have me scratching my head, a lifelong marketer, as to what to do next. So that's the transparency. That's the full disclosure. That's not
Right.
what people likely want to hear, but I think there's a path through it. So let's keep talking.
Yeah, well, I think that, I think the majority of the photographers listening are working B2C work. They're doing client work. They're working with families. They're working with couples. They're doing, maybe pets, but for the most part, they're not working with agencies. So I think it's actually comforting for them to hear that, okay, we don't have the harder job as marketers than somebody like Alan who might be, sought after and just have these ongoing contracts. So what does that look like? Are you finding out about these jobs and then you put a bid in? How what's the process like?
Depending on the client, there's I am finding that I'm not asked to bid against other people. I think it's a who's our first choice? Alan, can you do it? If I say, I'm sorry, I'm booked, can we move it? And if the answer is no, then they go to plan B, plan C, however they do that. Um, when I submit an estimate, and I have a studio manager who works with me, but it, I don't want to delegate it completely to somebody else because I have this belief that there shouldn't be one size fits all pricing, and we can talk more about that whenever you want. There are huge clients, and I know that they have larger budgets. When Apple Computer asked me to do something, which they did, my favorite origin story going back to when Apple called, I had no idea how much to charge them. So I called because I was a new photographer, and they wanted 4 images, and for a launch of a product they couldn't tell me about, but it was a global launch. And it turned out to be this little thing called the iPhone. So, how much do you charge Apple Computer for an unknown product for global use? So I called everybody I knew, photographers and old rep friends, and like looked skyward. Uh, and I came back with a price. And the art buyer at Apple, now I'm dealing directly with the company, she kind of chuckled and she said, "Here's what we have to offer." And it was a multiple of what I did. So thank goodness for honest clients, honest
Yes.
partners, because an unscrupulous person would have said, "Ha ha ha, we got a great deal."
Right.
And instead,
Right.
they knew what they wanted to spend. They knew what they felt it was worth. And that was that. Now, back to the big clients, small clients. When you're working with a big client, obviously you can elevate things. But a small client, at one point, Apple was in a garage, right? Steve and Waz were working. And if they had called then, I might have donated my work
Right.
because I believed in the product or the opportunity, or it was a category that I wanted to get into. And it wasn't going to be about money. Now, I shouldn't say donated because I think that's bad too. Nobody should give their work away. But uh, I would have greatly reduced what I needed to make for the opportunity and for the relationship. And that's another thing that is very, very important. You, I want to live to fight another battle and another one with people I respect. If I don't like you from the moment we start talking, irrelevant. It's like I'm not the right person for you.
Right.
But if I like the people I'm talking to and I like the project that they've envisioned and I see an opportunity, I don't, that opportunity far outweighs the current budget. Because if I help them grow and if they grow, they will remember that and it will pay dividends. And I can
Absolutely.
assure you it does, as it seems like you know as well.
Absolutely. Relationships are everything, when you are a service provider, I think.
Too.
And yeah, and genuinely caring about people and helping people, collaborating with people is is how you get that return,
Yeah.
on maybe your ROI on a lower, quote than you would have given somebody else. But that the difference there should eventually come back to you in dividends
Mhm.
if it was invested into the right relationship.
I can assure you it does because I have heard from people years after. It's like, God, I remember your passion when we talked to you and how excited you were about something we were nervous about or whatever. And it's because as an advertiser, I knew what I was doing. As a photographer, I never felt like I knew enough about what I was doing. Again, more transparency. So it was always enthusiasm that was going to win for me. And I'll figure it out. And I'm a good problem solver. Even if I've never done it, I will always be as transparent as possible. Um, it's like I haven't done this, but you know what? I can hire two assistants who have, and so they will get me through it. And if you like the vision, the technical know-how, I can buy. I can rent by the
Yes.
day, and
Yes.
so remember that as well. That should never be the barrier to a new opportunity.
Exactly. I think one of my good friends is a photographer, former art teacher, and he says that creativity is just problem solving. And I had never thought about it that way, and I think it's mostly right, and I love that you keep talking about your ability to problem solve and how that was your original skill set and how it's translated, and of course, it's translated. Um, I don't know if you know this statistic, but it within our industry, only 6% of professional photographers have a degree in photography, and I think that's why so many of us have imposter syndrome because we all figured it out on our own more or less or for not without paying a tuition. So it is almost like, "Oh my gosh, they're gonna find out. They're gonna find out that I'm just faking it, or I just learned how to do this at home and, I don't know every single function that my camera can perform." And I think it's a very common feeling, and wow, how reassuring is it to hear that somebody like you has some shred of imposter syndrome at times.
Well, I think it keeps us humble, and I think that's one of the greatest gifts we can give as we're growing in a new career is maintain that I don't know everything, but nobody does. And I also have this, and I talk about it a lot because I love to teach, because I feel like after a wonderful career, now careers, plural, sharing the knowledge just makes me better and so the conversation is about perfection paralysis and how I have a chronic, incurable case of it. And so I have, because again, I have to, my mother would grab my cheeks and she would say, have a positive attitude. Um, I've turned it into, making things perfectly imperfect, which has led to just a whole approach and a way of seeing that has been very uh, enlightening and helpful to me. And so I don't know. If the good news is if we all have imposter syndrome, maybe a few of our clients do as well.
Yeah.
And so we can commiserate after. It's like the trick
Oh,
is not to
goodness.
tell them how insecure you are, right?
You only need to be 10% better than the person that you're helping, right?
Yeah,
I think I've heard this.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's all you just need a little bit of a leg up, a toe up on your clients as far as the photography skills go. Well, can we talk a little bit about now the building of you as this, independent contractor, food and portrait and macro photographer, and what do you think were some of the key moments? What were some mistakes that maybe you could have done without, and maybe what were some mistakes that actually helped push you along, that sort of thing?
Okay. So, big, you're going to hear me be to equivocate to some degree because I believe that all the mistakes are wonderful opportunities. In fact, I believe there should be a national holiday called Mistake Day, and there should be parades that get lost in every major city. In fact, they should show up in different cities and then get lost. Uh, that is where growth comes. So the mistakes we make, enjoy them. The more uncomfortable you are, the more we should run toward that, whether it's a new kind of photography or a new assignment that someone gave you, or a new way of editing, right? We can't forget that. Where you get the most nervous is where the most growth is going to come, guaranteed. So run toward it to some degree. Now, big mistake or not, specialization. Do I need to be the best at one thing? Should I set a goal now that I've discovered this passion for photography and I love doing all sorts of things? Should I only do one thing and make sure I'm going to try to be the best in my area or in the country or who knows, in the world? Or can I still be varied? So I chose to be varied. And that is, I think, I think maybe a mistake. I don't know. Someone else would have to tell me. In my brain, it's a mistake because the good news is I have lots of varied assignments, but maybe I would have lots more in a given area if I only did food. And if my portfolio was just food, would I have triple the number of cookbooks on my shelf? Would I have more covers of whatever magazines are the pinnacle? Uh, Other things, not so much. I mean, would I ever specialize in macro photography? I think I'm known and I teach most for macro and like studio, still life, interesting storytelling. But that is the macro work, the flower work is not nearly as lucrative,
Right.
albeit maybe stock photography, which is another area that if you haven't taken all of the work that you just did for fun and found a good stock agency, it's passive income. So let's make a note to do that because even if you only get pennies, it's better than getting nothing. And I can tell you that there are some stock sites. I'm with Stocksy, which is a cooperative, and they split every commission 50-50 with their participants, with the creators. So that's much better than Getty or Adobe Stock or whomever. And so, but back to mistakes. Um, Undervaluing yourself is a huge mistake. I still do it. And fortunately, I married someone who says, "You're an idiot." Just like that. "You're an idiot. You can't just charge that." It's like, why not? She said, "Because you're worth more." It's like, I don't think so. She said, "Well, I do. So I'm gonna."
Yeah.
All right. So I
That's
don't know if anybody else can relate to that.
the most relatable problem for, I think,
So
photographers, and it's
yeah,
tied directly to the imposter syndrome is
right. Okay.
underpricing, yeah.
So yeah. Um so here's what I learned from that. Um Always lead with here's my pitch to solve for the underbidding. I work with some big, huge clients like Apple Computer, like the US Navy. By the way, that's another thing that came from the veterans thing. I got to spend days on an aircraft carrier documenting life.
Amazing.
So very cool.
Yes.
The highlight of my life from an assignment, by the way, because for someone who loves people who devote their lives to service and to see how beautifully organized and polite and absolutely perfectly disciplined and knowing your job, that made me so proud. And believe me, I don't advocate for war, but should we need to defend ourselves, oh my God, am I proud of what our country has built. I don't know about current leadership. I will leave politics out of it, but working with the service people,
Yeah.
my God. All right, back to the pitch.
No,
I
but
work
just yeah,
When
absolutely.
can we give
What
a
a
shout out
selfless.
for
Yes. So the people who opt in to do that, to serve in that way are so selfless, so brave, and yes, and, I'm right there with you, Alan, right there with you.
so back to the pitch. So I work with some big clients and I work with some tiny clients and budgets change. So if you have an amount in mind, why don't it'll save both of us a lot of time and back and forth because I don't know if you're feeling like you want to pay what Apple pays me. And I literally will say this and you'll hear them laughing or chuckling or whatever. It's like, no, we're more in this area. It's like, okay, so give me a price. And then from there, it's like, that's very nice. I can do it for that plus something, or or that's perfect, right? Or you know what? I really like the opportunity and I want us to have this conversation the next time you need someone. So how about we take 5% or 10% off your budget? You'll look good to whomever you're going to, and I will have started a relationship on the right foot. So
I love that.
there's the pitch, right?
Yeah.
And it, it seems to work.
I can see how that would work when you're dealing with an agency because they do have a budget, they've hired photographers before, and they have a ballpark in their head of what this might cost.
But not just an agency. I I had a perfume manufacturer in New Zealand, call me and said, "I love your work. I want I want to shoot my perfumes in ways that are like Renaissance still lives. Can you help me? How much?" And it's like, "Oh my God, well, that's a dream assignment from someone
Mhm.
so far away." And he said, and in the conversation, he told me, we're really struggling down here in New Zealand. I mean, it's between tariffs and everything else. And so whether that was a bit of a sob story, it worked. And so I felt bad. But I gave him that presentation, that little pitch. And he said, "Here's what I have in mind." It's like, okay, I could make that work.
And when you can't make it work, when the number that they throw out there is, you come
Ridiculous.
home.
I say,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't make that work. I can't make it work. But and I will stop there. I'm sorry, I just can't make that work. And invariably they will come back. It's like, well, what did you have in mind? And whatever it is, if someone says, because there's two ways people approach me of late. It's like, Um, we saw something on your website and we want to know if we can use it for blank. Now, my website is another mistake. We can come back to that. For me, it's like having a storage closet. It is like walking into my wife's closet and seeing everything from generations that she's either believes are going to come back in style or fit into. Like, why do you still have your high school jeans? And I love her. And Stacy, when you watch this, you're gonna laugh. Um, so that is my website. Because I never know what someone is looking for, I just put all the things I like up there. And in
Right.
fact, some of the things I don't like are up there too, because it's like at least you can scan and you can get a sense of of a vast range, and then we can narrow down. But I think that's a mistake because most photographer websites should have a very tightly curated, short grouping by type of work or by however you want, a folio of images
Right.
that do this and another one like that. Um, I don't, I don't subscribe to that, and I believe I should. But
Well, it's done, you've done okay with your wife's closet as a website, and I love that analogy. That is so because that is what so many of us do. We're like, "Should I think this still works? Let me just put this out here for the world to see. I don't wanna get rid of this just yet." And it's all about killing your darlings, right? They say in
yes,
writing. Yeah,
yeah,
and you can't. It's
yeah.
too hard.
It's funny, because we have 4 children, and they always, talk about, well, who's the favorite? And it's like, and most parents would say, "Oh, you're all our favorites. We can't have favorites." I will absolutely tell you, I have a favorite at any given point in time, and they know it, and they know it, and they know why, and the others know it as well because they need to aspire to do better. And if I could only get that mentality that is perfect for my kids and apply it to my work, happiness.
Oh, that's really funny. Yeah, I think it's like, when it comes to kids, it's like, you don't have a favorite, but there is one that you're gonna try really hard not to wake on a Saturday morning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Well,
So did I answer the mistakes and the
I
opportunities
I
well enough
think
for
I think
you?
so, yeah, and I think, like, you're showing so much humility, and I love how relatable your problems are even at the scale that you are at as a photographer. They're just the bigger versions of the same problems that we're all dealing with.
And by the way, we're all in this together. I if you had said to me that 10 years ago, because most of us picked it up as a hobby, right?
Right.
As a creative outlet.
Right?
And I didn't aspire to sell my work. I truly didn't. It was stress relief. It was a creative outlet until the first client comes. So we're all in this together. And then we all have to figure out and hopefully share because there's not enough sharing going on in this moment in our lives. Um, because it's good karma. We all need more of that. So
Yeah. Community is everything. I watched this documentary a few years ago on they did a study of lifespans and the cultures with the longest average lifespans, and they were trying to figure out what the common thread was, and it was community. It was
right.
other people
Was it the blue?
being
So this,
involved.
yeah,
What
the
what did you say?
the blue zones, right?
Yes, that's it. That's
Yeah,
it. We saw the same thing. And that's what it was. It was actual humans helping each other as the common denominator of
yeah,
better, longer lives. And I believe it. And I think it's lacking so much just overall, not
right
just in our
now,
industry.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, here's an easy trick that I like to share because I think it's so important. Wherever we live, there is a main street environment. In New York, there's multiple ones, but the main street, as metaphor, there's always a new merchant, a new restaurant, a new whatever that is shown up in your area, and why not be a good neighbor and say, I want to help you? Now, the help I do is with a camera. The help I do could be with whatever, but can I shoot your menu? And let's get you started. And I believe that is just such an easy thing. And back in the day before currency, I'm going back a few 100,000, maybe 10,000 years. I don't know when currency was invented. Um, we would barter. I would trade you and you would give me something of value. And so I started with food photography and my friend, and he fed me because he was my friend. And I think we can go to any of these places who may, because they're just starting out, not have huge budgets, but do the right thing in our communities because there will be word of mouth. We've all heard of word of mouth as the most important marketing. And that person will tell someone else and tell someone else. And
Absolutely.
that cannot be underscored enough. So you got good karma, you got people talking about how delightful you were to work with. Who did your menu? Who did the displays in your store? Who did I saw a beautiful image of your products in your window, in the local newspaper, wherever. Who did that? And someone will find you from that good karma, lower cost work. Or maybe it's like, yeah, that's funny. I was looking for someone and I've established this budget. Can you work with it? And it's up to whoever to say yes or no. But there's always someone new that could use a little help.
Absolutely. I'm going to co-sign on that and add to say it doesn't have to be uh, using your photography. It could, I would say, when you do reach out and as a business, when you reach out as a business to these other people, offer the help that you really enjoy doing, that you truly authentically want to do for them, because that's going to come through when you help them. You're going to feel good, they're going to feel good. And then yeah, when they sing your praises, they mean it because they saw what a genuinely happy uh adequate person you were to help them out, and do it for other photographers. That's my thing is I am so sick of the narrative about too many photographers, this, that, the other, and we're like, we are all in this together. Let's help everybody do well. Let's and you know how to help another photographer, not you, Alan, but everybody who's listening knows how in one way or another. Like I said, you just need to be 10% ahead of where somebody else is to help them. Help them. Help out in ways. Maybe it's like, hey, can I help you refine your portfolio on your website? Can I help you with this, that, the other? Like whatever you're good at, whatever you enjoy doing, help other people
Or
and
trade.
or trade.
First, that is a phenomenally beautiful and the most important thing in this conversation you just said, Jill. So thank you. But we can help each other.
Barter is amazing. Tax free too.
And 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 in that context, you don't even have to be 10% better. Do you want a second opinion?
Right.
You can discard it if you don't like it, but here's
Yes.
another opinion. Can you help me and I'll help you and we'll all rise.
I love to barter. I barter for childcare. My babysitter does hilarious business card or Christmas cards every year. And we do that and it gets me like 30 hours of free childcare. I've bartered for food, I've bartered for hair, I've bartered for all sorts of things, house cleaning. It's amazing. Highly recommend. And the IRS has to keep their grubby little hands off of it. So um doing things like this, is this part of what built your business and your
Absolutely.
portfolio?
Absolutely. Particularly in the food area, because I would, at some point, even with my friend, it was, hey, I got a new menu. Can you come down? Can you shoot? And it was becoming time consuming enough where it's like, okay, Anthony, we have to figure out some way because I don't want money,
Right.
but I want you to feed me. So here's my deal. Every picture you take for your website for whatever, trade you for a meal. I have 1,000 meals on tap there. But here's the other deal. When people ask you who did your site or who did your photography, you can't tell them we're bartering. You can't, because then our relationship will end, because this relationship is sacrosanct and special for you. Other people will have to pay whatever the going rate is.
Right, with
Again, with
growing fee.
my, depending on, do I charge the same for a taco shop versus for a Michelin restaurant? Absolutely not. It's based on the opportunity. So,
And if
for,
you
yeah.
if you were mentoring another photographer, I'm sure and I'm sure you've had them push back on this, say, "Well, why is that fair if the scope is the same and the amount of time spent on a project is the same? How do you justify?" And I'm playing devil's advocate because I'm pretty sure I know the answer. But, how do you justify charging somebody so much more for the same amount of work, just because you know they can afford it?
Well, I guess the answer is twofold. If I were busy 110% of the time, I would have to say no more often, and obviously things, but I'm not. Uh, all the time. There are very busy times, and I'm fortunate in that the work I do means I can pick and choose. And so, would I rather help someone who has less and help someone who has more and be respectful of the differences that they have? Absolutely. That's how I'm built as a human. And would I rather help someone than do nothing? Absolutely. So remember, this is fun for me. This is
Yeah,
something I love to do. So if you're only going to give me a little bit and it keeps me busy and out of trouble, as my mom would say, that's okay.
yeah,
That's okay. But more importantly, it's the opportunity and what I see in them. And if someone is undercutting what they think I'm worth, and I know they have money because I can see it in the professionalism of other areas, or I mean, like, everything is a tell. You can walk into a retail outlet and you can see how and guess how much they spent on the fixtures. And so
right,
you know that there's funding coming from somewhere versus it's IKEA stuff and they don't have money. You can
right,
tell from the amount of advertising they're doing that they have a budget.
right,
And so if they offer you pennies, you can laugh at them and say, really, why is photography the thing that you're willing to cheap out on, when it is such an important part of your storytelling, of your
right,
overall
yeah,
personality, your visual personality, we control as creators and we can help drive. You don't want to just cheap out, do you? And some people do. It's like, okay, I'm not the right person for you.
right. And the other thing is that these Apple-sized companies, the ROI of what you're producing is, the amount of money they're going to make off of your photos is so much grander than what, maybe the New Zealand-based, fragrance company is going to make. So your photos do have inherent value depending on the client, and that's, uh, totally fair to take into consideration when you're building those quotes.
Quick story.
Yeah,
Ricoh is a global manufacturer of everything from cameras to printing presses and copiers and office equipment and everything in between. There is a ginormous company um, that approached me because they needed a photography ambassador for their newest line of commercial printers. These were state of the art, $1 million presses, and they needed a body of work, and and they liked my colorfulness, the range of things. And so they approached me, and what a wonderful opportunity. And we negotiated an amount, and little did I know that the amount of photos that they would need would turn into the hundreds, because as part of the process, they said, can we print a book? We want to print a book. Um, and so forget that part of the assignment. We need a body of work. Boom. We have the biggest trade show in our industry is a thing called Drupa. And they said, and it's in Germany, it's every 4 years, like the Olympics, because it is so big, so massive, and so costly. They decided to fly me over and let me be there as my work is printing on printing presses for all the world to see and all the press sheets. And I'm looking around and it's like I'm in heaven.
Yeah.
Everywhere I looked, they had an inspiration. On the second floor of their booth was an inspiration gallery of all the work. It was it
Wow.
was so mind-blowing. And even that they flew me over and I gave a keynote speech to everybody, to all the representatives, but they made a mistake. I found out that they spent $6 million to build this booth. And I'm thinking in my head, they didn't pay me even $1 million.
And
What's
your work was everywhere.
And my work was everywhere. And by the way, I mean, well, it's it's beautiful and
Wow.
and right. And so this was printing
My
along with so many
goodness.
other things. So when I went to my contact at Rico, and again, the better the relationship, the more transparent you are. And I said to Andy, I am so grateful that you chose me and so happy that I met you because you will be a friend for life and I will do anything for you. He's the director of innovation for Rico Europe, who is the sponsor of this event and who then introduced me to Rico Americas and Rico Japan. And like, um, but I'm a little upset because what you paid me versus what you paid for a stupid booth, like, don't even matter. And he said, I know it's awful, but here's the good news. Anything you need printed for the rest of your life is on us. And I'm still calculating, all right, that's never going to be in the millions of dollars. And while I have hundreds of books coming, they're coming on pallets and I have nowhere to put them. So what am I going to do with the hundreds of books? You know, so um,
Yeah.
so there are things like that that happen that it's perspective. And I have
Right.
to remind myself that the the gift that was that moment as confirmation that I was on a right path has no value. So it doesn't matter what they paid me. And I know there are people out there who, are going to be pounding their fists and saying, you should have gotten more. And it's like, you're right, but I didn't. And I'm still happy. So go figure.
Right. Right? Imagine that. Well, Alan, this has been an amazing conversation. I am immediately thinking like, oh, well, I guess I need more time to talk to this person. But can we start to wrap it up with like 10 rapid fire, easy questions for you? So, because we barely talked about anything technical, and I think this will give people a little bit of insight on you as an artist. All right. So number one, what system do you shoot?
Fujifilm.
Cool.
EFX 100 for my studio work and my walk around, but it's slightly heavier. So I also use an XT5 for my walk around camera because it's light and, I can one hand things. And
That studio one is their digital medium format, right?
yes,
That's amazing.
I,
Amazing.
I started with Nikon. I moved to Canon. I've played with Ricoh, which is, yeah. And then I ended up
Yeah.
with Fuji and I absolutely couldn't be happier.
Very cool, very cool. Favorite lens?
Depends on what I'm shooting, capturing.
Let's say food. Favorite lens for food.
Oh, 100 millimeter macro, which on the medium format is a 120, and on the mirrorless it's a 90, right? So I've got to
Okay.
adjust for DSLR sizes.
Yeah, yeah, you're skipping right over a full frame too there. Shooting tethered or untethered?
In studio with clients, tethered.
Mhm.
The rest of the time, not so much.
All right, well, speaking of client onset or client remote?
Ooh, depends on how much I like the client.
That's fair. Editorial freedom or commercial budget?
I'm not sure I understand. You mean if the budget is wicked high? There's my Rhode Island.
With
uh,
with less
with
but
less
you
control
with less
versus
control.
I don't know, it depends on my mood. If I've had I am fortunate in that if they're choosing me because they like an approach that I have. So they give me a little latitude with uh, we need room for copy if it's editorial or a headline or whatever. Um, so it doesn't matter.
So you got the best of both worlds, in other words.
And I again, I you're reminding me how lucky I am.
We have the this is the best industry. Nobody has to know that though, but right. But perfect plating or perfect light?
Oh, light. Always light.
Always light. Great.
Always light.
Oh, yes. Mood boards or winging it?
Oh, both. Depends on the challenge. If it's a new client, it when I work for myself, when I am shooting just to explore, experiment, make mistakes, I have no mood boards. Just I will literally go to my refrigerator, grab three things, one from the crisper drawer, one from the main part, one from the condiment, the wall where the drinks are,
Yeah.
and I will make art from that. I have a junk drawer, and I will go into my junk drawer and I will make fine art from my junk drawer.
Oh,
Sometimes
fun.
it's just paper clips or rubber bands or interesting combinations of objects, and that is my practice. So no mood boards, just the stories in my brain. I like to say my brain is a carnival. True. Um, and it's about it's getting out of predictable. It's finding new comfort zones. It's
Yes.
trying new things.
Yes.
With clients, especially new ones, I got to climb into their heads. So let's build mood boards together.
Yeah. I think it's fun to have both, and they're both challenging in their own ways, right? Parameters set forth by others can be really fun and fun problem solving, and then you're creating your own problems is fun too. Uh, Still life or portraits?
They satisfy different parts of my soul. I think portraits because I am a street portrait, I'm an environmental shooter, I'm a story gatherer, and I love having conversations and then seeing where that takes the photography. That is that is the greatest gift we can give everybody because we're making them feel beautiful, special, seen. So there is no greater gift than spontaneous portraiture, seconded only by what we as portrait photographers can do in a controlled environment, because then it's like, let me show you how beautiful you are, right?
Indeed. Indeed.
And still life was fun, but it doesn't have the feedback.
Right. I know. Which is what's fun about it sometimes and what's missing about it sometimes, right? Last one. Would you rather fix it in post or but while staying with the energy that you have going while shooting, while photographing, or stop the work, fix it in pre-production?
Oh, fix it in post.
Same.
We have the tools now. So
Right.
AI is your friend in this area.
Mhm.
Why would you stop something that is going so well because you want to change the lights? Everything screeches to a halt. You just you work through it and you know that you have an incredibly powerful set of ways actually to fix nearly everything.
Right. Energy is everything. You can't disrupt it. I'm right there with you. Oh, this is so fun. Can you tell people about where to find you if they want to talk to you, if they want to work with you, if you offer anything for photographers who are looking to learn what you do?
I have to remind myself. So I am most prolific on Facebook and Instagram. So you can find me there. One is Alan W. Shapiro, and the other is Alan Shapiro 515. My birthday is May 15th. So uh, my website is alanshapiro.photography.com. There is a contact thing there. I I teach for a variety of organizations who share my worldview out of Chicago, Visual Wilderness. I mean, that's mainly editing and in person. I do my own workshops all over the world. They are announced on my social channels, and that's for fun and to help to take people along on the journey that I love every single day. And it's almost like every opportunity to go out with a camera is an opportunity to reinvent yourself over and over again. And so that
Yes.
process for me, the finding new comfort zones, that is my favorite thing to teach because there are invariably people who are just, oh, I'm bored. It's the same old, same old. It's like, I got you. I can get you out of that easily.
Yeah.
Uh, and I mentor people on a business side. Again, coming from the world of marketing, I know a thing or two and I'm a perpetual student of social media and the advertising opportunities that are present there and SEO and now AI, the AI based intelligence. People are going to find you by asking ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini just like they would find you by entering you in a Google search bar. And so
Yep.
we need to be cognizant of that as well. But that's an ever changing thing. So there's no one who's an expert. Anybody who says they are is just a huge consultancy and they're lying because it changes literally every day. You hear people talk about the algorithms on Instagram. They change them every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
nobody's an expert.
It's an undulating landscape that we are all navigating together, and it's a whole lot of trial, error, throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, and
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Yes.
there's no such thing as you have to over communicate. And so it's whether it's in the stories you're sharing, the posts you're doing, you have to put out whatever it is that is the essence of you so that they know not just that's a pretty picture, but that's an interesting person who took the pretty picture.
Amen.
Share your stories.
Indeed. Well, I think that's a great place to end. I appreciate your time so much, Alan. It was really fun to get to know you.
You too. You too. Thank you. Thank you.
Have a wonderful holiday season. Happy New Year.
Too.
So until next time, keep shooting, keep creating, and keep building the business that supports your dreams. Have a fantastic week. And remember, in the business of photography, your creativity is your biggest asset.